Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're having an awesome day. If you're new here to the channel, please like the videos, comment, subscribe. It really does help. But today's video is going to be probably the last of the year. I'm going to do a full rundown on all the performance modifications done to the car so far. I get a lot of questions about specific things like what's been done to the engine, the cams, the suspension, the exhaust, so on and so forth. So we're going to run everything down today so you guys have a good idea of what's done to the car, how it's set up, and then I'm going to detail a couple of things that hopefully will be accomplished next season as well. Just because, let's do a cold start. I don't think I've run this in about a week now that the weather's starting to turn and all the car events have stopped. All right, so first we'll start under the hood, and honestly, there's nothing too wild and crazy under here. It's all pretty simple performance stuff. First, the car has an AFE cold air. You can call it a cold air intake, which is a 2005 plus intake. Yes, the car is a 2004. What I've done is convert the MAF to an 80 millimeter blade style MAF, or slot style MAF, however you want to say it, to get the 80 millimeter mass airflow, and then run the 2005 plus intake. It has a Summit Racing 75 millimeter cable throttle body. It has a Trick Flow upper intake plenum. It does have Summit Racing underdrive pulleys, and that doesn't really add any horsepower, but it does help the engine rev faster, so you get up into RPM a little bit quicker. One thing to note, if you guys are looking at underdrive pulleys, make sure it has the SFI approved damper. There are still sets, I believe, sold out there that do not have the SFI damper on there, and those could potentially harm your engine. And then, of course, as everybody knows, under those valve covers are hiding Todd Warren custom grind cams from Apocalypse Performance, paired with a set of Superformance springs, and I also did the valve seals at the same time. The engine will happily spin 7,000 RPM and makes power to roughly the 66 to 6,800 RPM range with the cams. And then, of course, there's just little stuff under the hood, like the running a catch can system rather than running the PCV back into the intake. So little things there. Moving on specifically to the exhaust. Up front, we have the OBX long tube headers. Yes, this is a Chinese kit. It has held up for me pretty well, but also keep in mind this car is garaged in the winter. It no longer sees salt and snow. That's a big thing. But so far, these long tubes have held up very well for me. From what I understand, though, it is no longer possible to get the OBX kit. From there, we have the off-road X-pipe. All tubing is 2.5 inch. And at the rear, you have the NASCAR style boom tubes from SpinTech. And again, this is due because of the suspension not without a whole lot of expensive custom bends would I be able to run 2.5-inch exhaust over the rear axle. And what the boom tubes look like from the rear of the car. All right, moving on to suspension. I'll show as much of this as possible. Up front, we are running QA1 coilovers, 650-pound springs. Currently, I'm on a single adjustable setup. That may very well be upgraded to double adjustable here in the near future. I am running the front ADTR sway bar kit with Proform end links. In the rear, I am also running the ADTR rear sway bar kit, and again QA1 single adjustable shocks. Now, the rear of these cars, it is not possible to run a coilover setup without a whole lot of custom fabrication. So the rear has Roush GT500 drop springs, which are a progressive rate spring, which means the harder you throw this into corners, the stiffer the spring gets. And that also gave me the amount of lowering I was looking to achieve in the rear end. Also in the rear, we have massive speed systems, upper and lower trailing arms, and their Watts link arms. Paired with the suspension goodies, we have the big brake kit from Range Industries. Now, they call it a big brake kit, but really what this is a set of brackets that allow you to move your factory caliper up and out, and then run a 14-inch Mustang front rotor. Usually, I believe it's a 07 to 09 GT500 had these. So not a true big brake kit, but going to the 14-inch rotor does give you something like 20% greater stopping power with the front brakes. So it's a very reasonable kit. I believe it's still only $120. Some people have run into fitment issues, and the truth of the matter is that the Mustang front rotor is something like 10 thousandths to 20 thousandths thicker than the Crown Vic Grand Marquis Lincoln Town Car front rotor. So it's not much, but it is enough of a variance that if you're running brand new pads, or you don't make a few adjustments, potentially even turning the rotor, you're going to have issues fitting these to your car. So again, it comes with its caveats, but if you get it to work, this is a fantastic upgrade. As far as interior modifications on this car, it is relatively simple. I've got Chinese eBay bucket seats that I've adapted to use the factory rails. So in the front, I do have power options on these seats, which is very convenient still. Got to have your fire extinguisher if you're going to be doing any type of racing or performance driving. Just don't take a chance, guys. That is a bracket off of Amazon. There is a whole video on installing it, and it's been a fantastic product so far. Instrumentation, in lieu of installing 80 million gauges, what I can pick up off of the ECU, I've got this scan gauge. It tells me things like my actual water temperature, trans temp, air intake temperature, and I forget what other parameter I have on there. Of course, I'm running the mini tack on the steering column, oil pressure, and also my air to fuel gauge as well. Interior modifications, though, I've kept pretty basic on this car. I also did a video where I was able to get a 6-disc CD, in-dash CD MP3 player from, I believe, a later model Ranger to plug directly into this car. So not your fancy touchscreen, but I don't need that. It plays MP3s. It does what I want it to do. Everything else in the car is pretty much as delivered from the factory. All right, the rear axle specifically is still the factory unit. This is a 2004, so it does have the 28 spline axles, which, although 31 splines are a nice upgrade, contrary to popular belief, unless you are doing, say, off-road stuff with the vehicle or just throwing a ton of horsepower at it, these 28 spline axles are more than likely going to be adequate for your application. For rear gears, I'm running 410s. The posi unit that I'm running is a Auburn Pro Series differential. Also kind of in the realm of performance under the hood, we can talk about the transmission, which is still the factory 4R70W. There's nothing terribly special about it right now. Again, I'm not throwing a ton of horsepower at it, but it has been upgraded with a J-modded valve body, and it has a 3600 stall, I believe from TCI. It's been quite a while since I've done that modification. So 3600 stall to get it up into its, get the engine up into the RPM range, and then the J-modded valve body, because the harder and firmer your shifts are, believe it or not, they wear things out less quickly than those long, slow, drawn-out grandma shifts that like to burn up clutches. As far as the specs and the wheels and tires go, these are GT500 replicas from American Muscle. They are the specs for, I believe, an 05 to 09 Mustang, which is, I believe, a plus 30 offset in the front and a plus 45 offset in the rear. One thing I am doing with the rear is I am running a small, if you can see it, 5/16 inch spacer, and I just picked that up at O'Reilly's. The hub of the wheel, the bore still sits on the hub for the axle, but it does help it seat just a little bit better against the rear brake rotor assembly. The wheels are 18 by 10 in the rear, 18 by 9 in the front. Current tire size is a 285, 35, 18 in the rear, and a 265, 35, 18 in the front. That may very well change here next season. If possible, I'm looking at upgrading tires again, and I would like to run a 315, 30, 18 in the rear, and potentially a 295, 30, 18 in the front. Just a hair shorter, but much wider. Much more traction to get this big girl around some of these tight autocross courses that I run. That's really about it as far as true performance modifications go on this car. Some of the just visual or aesthetic mods that I've done, of course, I'm running a Mustang front, you could call it a front splitter or a front lip. For a new Edge Mustang, I believe the most popular one are the Mach 1 chin spoilers. Those are the most popular to put on these cars. I'm also running a GT500 hood vent. This is not an air scoop. It is designed to evacuate as much heat from under the hood as possible, and it is functional, and it does work well. Of course, tinted the windows. I blacked out the side molding. That could stand to be done again. The side molding blackout was done with just vinyl strip that I found at O'Reilly's. When I purchased it, it appeared to be what I can only describe as new old stock. The packaging was it looked like the packaging was at least 10 years old. So I'm not sure if that's something you can get from O'Reilly's anymore. I don't remember the brand name, but that is how I did the blackout on the side trim there, was just with vinyl strip. I've gone through a couple different spoilers. One of the first ones I run was a GT500 spoiler, I believe from '09. Wasn't quite happy with the fitment on that, so this is a S550 spoiler, just another cheap eBay unit that I modified with a heat gun to get it to stand up more, and then painted it to match the car and bolted it to the trunk. I did a Crown Vic rear conversion on this, more specifically because I just don't like the big reflectors that came across the back of these cars. And I did not feel like painting the one that was on it. So this was a new old stock trunk fascia from a P71 police interceptor that I got from a dealership for however many years ago for like $150. eBay taillights for Crown Vic. They are tinted. And the conversion is relatively simple. The biggest thing to remember if you're going to do it is you do have to shim out the lock cylinder because it will not fit flush against the trunk. I am running rear diffusers on the car. I guess you could call them functional. They do keep air out from underneath the bumper. I don't do a whole lot of like straight up track day stuff, so whether or not they actually make the car faster is debatable, but I think they look cool. I like them, that's what matters. And of course, I'm sure as many of you already know, the car is tuned by Marty and Jeff down at Moe's Speed Shop in Georgia. These guys are absolute gurus with these cars. There's a lot of intricacies that go with these big Panther platforms that, say, somebody that normally tunes Mustangs or other platforms may not get quite right. Those guys at Moe's Speed Shop know these cars, and even if you're just looking for a tune on all factory components to make your car just a little bit better, they are the people to go to. Let me tell you, I am not paid or endorsed or anything. They're just really that good. And moving on to goals for next season. That beautiful unit right there is a Vortec V1 centrifugal supercharger that I picked up for a song and a dance, and it is in awesome shape. Zero, and I mean zero shaft play at all. I looked it over, everything seems fantastic. Now again, this was only the head unit, so I am going to have to build my own system for it, pick up the brackets for Vortec, but it is going to be considerably cheaper than going to pick up a pre-made kit or adapting a pre-made Mustang kit to fit this car. So that hopefully will be accomplished next season for as cheaply as possible, may I add. Things like secondhand 39-pound Cobra injectors and just things that I can pick up cheaply where I can. Just as a testament to show that if you put your mind to it, you can supercharge these cars, not cheaply, but for maybe less money than others might have spent supercharging these cars. One other thing that is slated for next year that I cannot give you a direct visual on because it is still at the shop getting rebuilt is this car next season will be 5-speed swapped. I have a Tremec 3650 out of a 2004 Mustang that is at a shop right now at a rebuilder getting rebuilt. A few internal upgrades to make it a little bit happier with higher RPM shifts, but I think that should suit my needs quite well in this car. And the gear ratios will be much, much better for autocrossing. And I do also have an aluminum drive shaft that I also picked up for a song and a dance to go in the car with the 5-speed swap as well. That about wraps it up for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And I don't think I missed anything, but if you guys still have questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. But that's the car. That's as it's set up here at the end of the season in 2024. You guys saw what I've got planned for the future. Hopefully it'll make this car just a whole nother car once again. But again, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like the videos, comment, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be much more awesome content with this car, and hopefully in the near future my 1984 Cutlass will be returning as well. That is a Olds big block powered street machine, so hopefully you guys will like that too. Should be good times. But most importantly, you guys have an awesome day, and I'll leave you guys with some cam chop and maybe a couple revs, because who doesn't love that?